15 people were sitting at that table. My husband looked around at all of them, smiled, and said out loud what he'd apparently believed for years. She doesn't really do anything around here. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I stood up, said one quiet sentence, and watched the color drain from his face. What happened next changed everything. My name is Lillian Harper. I'm 34 years old, and until that Thanksgiving evening, I had spent 6 years being the quietest, most organized, most overlooked person in a very loud family. My job title is Remote Administrative Coordinator for a logistics company. I know, even my own mother still isn't sure what that means. I work from home, which means I sit in front of a laptop for most of the day, managing schedules, coordinating shipments, tracking supplier contracts, and solving problems before most people even realize there's a problem to solve. It's not glamorous. There's no corner office, no business card anyone finds impressive at a dinner party, but it pays well, it matters, and I'm good at it. When I married Daniel 6 years ago, I married into his world too. His family is big and warm and loud in a way mine never was. Sunday dinners, birthday parties, holiday planning committees that somehow always needed 3 meetings. I loved it at first. I'm the kind of person who notices what needs to be done and just does it without making a speech about it. So I became the one who organized the holiday menus, remembered everyone's dietary restrictions, smoothed over arguments between his aunts before they turned into something bigger. Daniel got praise. He's the one everyone called the backbone of this family. He earned a good salary working in construction management, and nobody ever let him forget how much they appreciated it. I stayed quiet. I told myself that patience was enough, that doing good work consistently, even without recognition, was its own kind of dignity. Thanksgiving taught me I was wrong about that. Silence doesn't protect you from being erased. It just makes it easier for others to rewrite your story without any pushback from you. But here's what they never counted on. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I wasn't the loudest voice at the table, but I had something they didn't expect. Before I get into what happened next, I want to say something directly to anyone watching this right now who has ever felt invisible in their own home, in their own family, in a room full of people who should know better. You're not imagining it. Your work is real, even when no one sees it. And if this story sounds familiar, stay with me, because it only gets more interesting from here. Subscribe if you've ever had your hard work treated like it doesn't count. Click like or hype before we get into the part of the story where everything finally changes. The Thanksgiving dinner was at Patricia's house. Patricia, she sets a beautiful table, I'll give her that. There were 15 of us that year, packed around 2 long tables pushed together in the dining room. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon candles filled the whole house. I had been there since 9 in the morning. I helped prep the stuffing, timed the sides, arranged the table settings, and made sure Patricia's sister's gluten allergy was accounted for in every dish. By the time everyone sat down, I was tired in that quiet, satisfied way you feel when something you worked hard on is finally coming together. Dinner was warm and comfortable at first. Wine was poured, stories were told. Then someone, I think it was Daniel's cousin Brett, made a joke about how lucky I was to work from home. Must be nice, he said, grinning, just rolling out of bed and logging in. I smiled. I was used to it. Then Daniel leaned back in his chair, looked around the table like he was about to say something clever, and said it. Yeah, but let's be honest, Lillian doesn't really do anything around here. A few people laughed, not mean laughs, just the awkward kind that happen when no one knows if something is a joke or not. He kept going. She sits at a laptop all day. I'm the one handling the real responsibilities. The mortgage, the car, all of it. Patricia nodded slowly from the other end of the table. I've always wondered what exactly it is you do all day, Lillian. Brett's girlfriend asked, not unkindly, if my job was basically just online shopping and emails. The whole table was looking at me. I could feel my face getting warm. The cinnamon smell suddenly felt too sweet, too heavy. I didn't raise my voice. I set my napkin on the table. I stood up slowly. If I don't do anything here, then maybe it's time I stop. The room went still. Daniel rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. I sat back down. I picked up my fork. I didn't say another word for the rest of the meal, but something inside me had shifted, something quiet and final. I just didn't know what I was going to do about it yet. That night, after everyone had gone home and Daniel was watching television in the other room, I sat in our kitchen in the dark for a long time. The plates were washed, the leftover containers were labeled and stacked in the fridge. I had done all of that too, and no one noticed. Later, I heard Daniel in the hallway talking to his brother on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but our house isn't big and he wasn't being quiet. He's too sensitive, he said. She barely contributes financially anyway. I handle everything. I stood very still in the kitchen doorway. I pay our electric bill, our internet, our streaming subscriptions, our groceries most months, and half of the car insurance. I have receipts, I have bank statements. I know exactly what I contribute because I am an administrative coordinator, and organizing financial information is something I do in my sleep. He believed what he was saying. That was the part that frightened me most. A few weeks later, there was a Christmas planning meeting at Patricia's house. I showed up because I always show up. Midway through the conversation about catering versus home cooking, Patricia looked at me and said casually, "Maybe this This is the year Lillian finally finds herself a real job. Daniel laughed, didn't hesitate, didn't glance at me first, just laughed like it was the most natural thing in the world. After that, I noticed the shift. Relatives started speaking about future family finances in conversations that simply didn't include me, as if I were a guest in my own marriage. At one point, Daniel suggested we consolidate some of our accounts into his name, since he handles everything anyway. He said it casually, like he was suggesting a different brand of dish soap. He believed what he was saying. That was the part that frightened me most. I stopped arguing, not because I agreed, because I started paying very close attention instead. I went through every bill, every transfer, every account. I documented conversations. I kept notes. I wasn't angry in a loud way. I was cold, focused, and clear. And I started preparing for the moment when the truth would have no choice but to speak for itself. Here's what Daniel never paid attention to, because he never thought it mattered. Every evening, after my day job wrapped up, I spent 2 to 3 hours managing a website. He'd seen me doing it 100 times. Once, early on, he had peered over my shoulder, seen a blog post I was editing, and said, "Is that your little hobby?" He said it the way people say it when they're trying to be supportive but actually find it amusing. I let him think that. The truth was that 3 years earlier, I had started an anonymous online platform about remote work, work-life balance, and careers built outside traditional offices. I started it because I kept having the same conversations with people who were confused or embarrassed about working from home, who felt invisible in their own professional lives, who needed someone to name what they were experiencing. I never put my name on it. I valued my privacy. I built it slowly, consistently, the same way I do everything. By the time of that Thanksgiving dinner, the platform had hundreds of thousands of monthly readers. The ad revenue was substantial. Sponsorship deals with software companies and productivity brands had turned it into something I can only describe as quietly significant. My husband had no idea. He had actually visited the site once. He mentioned it to me without knowing I owned it. Said something like, "I saw this article shared online. Pretty good, actually." I nodded and said, "Yeah, it's a solid site," and changed the subject. After Thanksgiving, I realized that the truth I had been protecting out of privacy might eventually become the truth I would need out of necessity. I started organizing everything: revenue reports, traffic analytics, sponsorship contracts, all of it, clean and documented, the way I document everything. My best friend Rachel has known me since we were 11 years old. She was the first person I called after Thanksgiving. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I love most about her. When I finished, there was a pause. Then she said, "Lillian, I'm going to need you to let me be angry about this for a moment." She was furious. Not in a dramatic way, in the quiet, clear way that people who love you get furious when someone has treated you badly for too long. She came over the following Saturday. We sat at my kitchen table with coffee and my laptop, and she helped me organize every piece of financial documentation I had into a clean folder. Revenue from the platform, bills I had paid, account statements showing my contributions to our household going back 4 years. "You've been proving them wrong quietly," she said at one point, looking at the numbers on the screen. Why? I didn't have a clean answer. "Because I thought being right was enough," I said. She shook her head. "Being right in silence just means they keep talking." Meanwhile, Daniel's confidence was growing. At a family dinner in early December, he made the same joke again in front of the same people, with the ease of someone who has told a story so many times it no longer feels like a story to them. It feels like fact. His cousin laughed, his brother nodded, Patricia smiled that small, agreeable smile she had. Rachel texted me that same night. She had heard about it through the family grapevine. "The next gathering is the moment. You'll know when." I already knew. The Christmas family dinner was at Patricia's house again, bigger this time. Extended family, neighbors who were practically family, a long table that stretched from the dining room into the living room, the smell of pine and melted candle wax, Christmas music playing just low enough that you could still hear every conversation. I brought my laptop in my bag. Rachel knew why. No one else did. Dinner went well for the first hour. Then the conversation drifted, the way it always does in that family, toward money and work and who was doing well and who needed to make better choices. Daniel leaned back in his chair. He smiled at the table. "Lillian has the easiest life out of all of us." He really does. People smiled, a few nodded. I didn't feel angry. I felt very, very calm. The calmness you feel when something you've been preparing for has finally arrived. I reached into my bag. I took out my laptop. I stood up. "Before we move on," I said, "I want to show everyone something." Daniel looked at me with the expression of a man who assumes he's about to watch something embarrassing. I connected my laptop to the television in the living room. The screen came on. I opened the dashboard of my platform. Monthly visitor numbers filled the screen. Numbers that were, to put it plainly, hard to explain away. I let the room look at them for a moment. Then I opened the revenue report. Ad income, sponsorship payments, quarterly totals. The room was so quiet I could hear the candle flames. I spoke calmly. I explained that this platform had been running for 3 years, that it had been generating income that covered a significant portion of our household expenses, that the hobby Daniel had laughed at was not a hobby. I turned to face him directly. His mouth was slightly open. He was staring at the screen. This is what I do while dinner gets made, while bills get paid, while this family gets organized for every holiday. This is what happens on the laptop. No one was laughing now. Not Brett, not Patricia, not Daniel. He tried. He gave a short, uncertain laugh and said, "Well, I mean, I didn't know the full picture." No one joined him. I closed the laptop. I looked around the room one last time. I never needed applause to do my work, but I won't keep pretending the work doesn't exist. I sat down. I picked up my glass of water. My hand was completely steady. After that night, the air in that family changed. You could feel it, the way you can feel a pressure drop before weather shifts. Several relatives reached out privately in the days that followed. Daniel's aunt sent me a long message. Brett actually called me, which surprised me, to say he felt genuinely embarrassed about the jokes he'd made over the years. Even Patricia, in her careful, formal way, said she thought she had misjudged the situation. Daniel struggled more than anyone, not because he was caught in a lie exactly, but because he had told his version of our life so many times he had truly stopped questioning it. Confronting that kind of self-deception is hard. I don't say that without sympathy, but sympathy doesn't fix a marriage that has been built on one person being made invisible. Within a few months, I made decisions for my future that were mine alone to make. I moved forward independently. I took my platform public, put my name on it for the first time, and focused entirely on building something that had always been mine. Rachel was with me through every step. I look back on that Thanksgiving table sometimes, the cinnamon smell, the silence after I stood up, Daniel rolling his eyes. I don't feel bitter about it anymore. I feel grateful. In the strange way you feel grateful for painful things that finally showed you something true. The people who dismissed me the loudest were the ones who understood the least about what was actually happening around them. That's not something I needed to say at the table. The laptop screen said it well enough. If someone has ever embarrassed you in front of people who should have known better, or tried to make your hard work look like nothing, you know exactly how that silence feels after it happens. You know the walk back to your car, the drive home, the way it replays in your head. Leave your story in the comments. You don't have to carry it alone. Subscribe to be part of a community of people who choose not to stay silent. And if this story reached you, click hype so it can reach someone else who needs it today. Standing up for yourself is never as loud as people imagine it will be. Sometimes it's just standing up, quietly, with a truth already prepared. If this story meant something to you, subscribe, click hype, and tell me where you're watching from. I genuinely want to know how far this one travels.